Well, hello everyone, and how are you guys today? It is a Friday, and I am here I'm actually here early to tell you guys more about astrology. And next week, I'm going to be talking about aspects. But before I talk about aspects, you have to understand everything I've covered thus far up to now. So today I'm just going to really quickly go over everything I've covered. Now I know that's like 6 to 8 videos so far. So I've done an in-depth analysis of everything I'm covering in this video. However, today is just a quick recap, so that way when I talk about aspects tomorrow and you need a quick reminder, be like, oh, what does Aries mean? Or, oh, what's the first house? You can quickly refer back to this video instead of having to search through some of my other videos. However, these are just like PowerPoint, so it's just going to be like key quick words to jog your memory. These like keywords are like summarization of like everything I've talked about. So if you do not remember, it's really good to go back and review, kind of like midterms for school. It's good to go back and review the material that I've covered to get more in-depth analysis on the topics, so you understand them even more when I go into aspects. So, mid-course recap. We're just reviewing the basics of astrology. I'll put that there. So, quickly to start off, what is astrology? Well, how did astrology originate? Well, it originated in Babylon, Mesopotamia, and up from then to now, it's been over 16 centuries. And just to highlight quickly some of the states that contributed, to talk about some of the cultures that have contributed to astrology. Babylon were the ancient astronomers when astrology and astronomy were one. And then Greek added the mythology, and then Egyptians added their hieroglyphics, which is the symbols that they use to symbolize. As they say, a picture means 1,000 words, so that's what the Egyptians added. And then because astrology is about esoteric in the spiritual world, so is tarot, and tarot and astrology go one in hand together, and that can be thanked to Israel. And then also where we are today, we can influence Britain, where the daily column became, what's your sun sign? Let's see your horoscope. And that's where we evolved to today. So astrology is astronomy with a twist. We're looking at constellations, stars, planets. Basically, think about looking at inanimate objects, things that aren't alive around you. And that's basically what constellations are. So we are giving these constellations, stars, planets, life. And by giving them life, we're anthropomorphizing them, as I showed in the slide previous, which means we're giving human characteristics to things that aren't human, so therefore we can identify with them and help them better understand us. But constellations how do we come up with the constellations? Well, the sun goes through 12 zodiac signs. This is the path of the sun. There's so many other zodiac signs out there, but we just don't include them because the sun doesn't pass them, and if the sun doesn't pass them, which is the soul focus, our soul energy, then they're not like an influence on us because our direct energy isn't passing through it. So that's why we only have 12 zodiac signs, really 13. So we started off with this astrology lesson with modalities, and these are your or you can call them quadruplicities if you want to look it up on Google. And these are your elements, but also your elements are broken up into cardinal, fixed, and mutable because, as I said, we are following the sun. So therefore the sun, as you see, goes through different seasons, and each element has a season that corresponds with it, as I'll show you on the next slide. But cardinals are they're really great at starting projects because you're like the start of the season. And then fixed, they are able to endure the project because they're the middle of the season. And then mutable, they're the end of the season, so they're able to deal with the transition of going from one project to another. And there's always polarities, there's always a positive and a negative. So if you want to think about some of these, you could think about how the negative qualities of these traits are. And then to talk about elements, well, before we break down elements, we have to talk about the backbone of elements, which is these qualities, which is hot, cold, wet, and dry. And that's basically what we do to describe everything in our senses, because we have 7 senses. We feel, see, touch, smell, taste. Oh, those are our 5 senses. I'm sorry, we have 5 senses. And so those 5 senses ironically have 4 qualities, but there's also like a 5th element in there, so there could be like a 5th quality of ether, which is like spiritualism. But enough of that, we're talking about just these 4 basic ones. And you can think of hot as being transformative, because if you burn something, it's, even in biology, once you like burn something, you can't undo the burn, so it's like done. So you've transformed in that sense. And also, when you think about science, when something's cold, it's releasing off its heat, so therefore you're losing energy. Another way you can think of wet or moist is erosion, because in the natural world, creeks, riverbeds, and things, metal can rust from just water constantly hitting it. They can be called weathering, but this type of weathering is in erosion, but water also flows. And then dry, because what's the opposite of wet is dry, and if you're dry, you have clarity because you see the bare basics, and with that you can also be stagnant because you're just like, no movement because you're dry. How do you move when you're dry? Because it hurts to move. That's why your lips crack if you think about it. So as we talked about, these are the elements that we're going to cover, and as I said, the Egyptians brought in the hieroglyphics, so therefore I'm going to be giving you every symbol you could possibly need to know about astrology. So these symbols represent these 4 elements. So as I said, those 4 qualities, hot, cold, wet, and dry, they make up the 4 elements in different combinations. Kind of bring it back to a little bit about math. How many different combinations can you get out of 4 pennies? Well, that was a bad example. How many combinations can you get out of having 4 different numbers? How many times can you multiply them in different ways to get different numbers? But anyway, so fire is a mixture of hot and dry. And these words right here, they go in the parentheses with the 4 temperaments. You can Google this. The 4 temperaments are right here, and these, I like them because they really describe the element. So I'm so sorry, I don't know how to pronounce these correctly. Chloric for fire means that it's irritable. It's also like fast moving and fast paced. So because if you're always moving, doing something, you can get irritable because you're like constantly on the move. And what if you don't want to move, It could be like that. So, and because as I said, there's always a polarity in elements, well, actually in everything. So here, the duality or polarity is masculine and feminine, and you can mix these 2 together to get different types of temperaments as well, like masculine, like the super masculine, or the feminine, the super feminine. Or you can get like the in-between, because there's a spectrum. So fire is considered masculine, and fire and air go together because they're both masculine signs, and air and water and earth go together because they're both feminine signs, but water just happens to be more masculine than earth. And so sanguine, oh my god, means that you're being able to think clearly, be level-headed, because think about a masculine, feminine. Instead of being just like headstrong, doing like masculine things, thinking aggressive, you're able to like reflect a little bit, be more inward, and think about how maybe your actions affect others instead of being so outward and so just all over the place. You're able to contain yourself more in a sense, which is like air, because it is hard to contain fire, but air you can contain. I mean, you can contain fire, but if you do, you put out the fire. So that's the problem there. And then water is phlegmatic, which means it's very calm. And it's very interesting because water is calm, but also if you stir up water, it's no longer calm. So it's like a facade of calm because they're so deep and inward. It's just like they don't show it all. So they're able to have a calm disposition. And then you have, oh wow, that was, I don't know how, oh, that was supposed to be melancholy here, but I put it right here. Earth is melancholy, and melancholy means being weighed down by the realities of life, because Earth is all about earthly things. So if you're strong in Earth, you can be weighed down by heavy Earth. And if you don't have anything to do, you kind of just feel bogged down, because Earth is about the cycles of life, death, transform, death, you know. So that can be daunting. And that's something that Earth and water also have in common, because they deal with those types of depths, which is very feminine in that sense, because you have to be able to be receptive, reflective, and be able to like stand strong in who you are and know who you are inwardly and outwardly. And here is your spring equinox, starting with Aries, which is the start of our zodiac here if you're in the northern hemisphere. But if you're in the southern hemisphere, this will be your spring equinox. So we start from Aries and then go to Taurus, Gemini, and then here we are reaching summer. Starting with Cancer starts summer, then it's Leo, Virgo, and then Libra, as I said. They switch, so now Libra is the start of the northern hemisphere's fall. So now we're at Libra, Scorpio, which is where we are now, getting ready to go into Sagittarius soon. And then we're going to hit winter. Ooh, we're at the end of the year, but not really, by astrology standards. So then here we are at Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, and now you're at the end of the year and starting back in spring with Aries. So, as I said, although each season has each element in there, well really it's three out of the 4 elements, because we have fire, earth, air, and water, but each season is 3 months, so therefore we have 4 seasons, 3 months, so each month has 3 out of the 4 zodiac signs, which means 3 out of the 4 elements. So therefore, if you want to think about it that way, because Aries starts spring, spring is fire, because Cancer starts summer, water is summer, because Libra starts fall, air is fall, and because Capricorn starts winter, Earth is winter, which would make sense if you think about it, because Earth is cold and like the bare end, which is great for winter because that holds all of that. But then water is summer. Even though it's hot, what do you want to do when it's hot? Cool yourself off with some water. And then when it's fall, you feel the frigid air blowing on you. And then when it's summer, you're starting to feel the heat kick up and you're just like, ooh, I'm feeling a warmth. See, and this is also bringing back the temperaments that I talked about. Fire is warm, water is moist, air is dry, and then earth is also dry, but there are 2 different types of dries. So moving on to the zodiac signs, these are all the zodiac signs, and as you see, spring, summer, fall, winter. Yeah, it looks weird when you look at it on a chart when they put it all there, but they just break it up into 4. They break it up into the 4 elements, because we have Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, which are the fire elements, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, earth elements, air elements, water elements. So some characteristics to think about the zodiac signs as personalities, because Aries starts the season and starts the zodiac year. They're like the headstrong and courageous because they're willing to be bold and start something new. Taurus, they like to enjoy the leisures because a bull is just chilling, eating grass, grazing, enjoying life. Until you rile them up, of course. But other than that, they're pretty chill. Don't mess with the bull. Same with Aries, but we learned something. Me and Lady Crone learned something fun actually. That if a bull and a ram go against each other, ram is Aries, bull is Taurus. Aries would win by the strongness of butting their head against the bull, even though bulls butt heads too. But an Aries just more bam like that. But Aries have to do this, their little rams, before they can do this. So if a bull head butts you right there in your sensitive part, kaput, Aries, you lost. So these two are able to fight in battle. The Gemini represents the twins, and they because they represent the twins, they have the duality of both the inward and outward, and that's why they also struggle a little bit, because they try to balance the two twins that are inside of them. So how do you balance two in one? But they are charming and social butterflies. And then Cancers, they are crabs, and crabs, like, they have their protective shell. And Cancer, a little bit about houses too. I was trying to keep it out. Cancer's the 4th house, and the 4th house is all about home. So therefore, Cancer's about how you protect love, things you love. Leo is all about grabbing attention because they're the spotlight. The planet that rules Leo is the sun, and as we said, the sun is the source of light. So therefore, Leos are going to be able to grab your attention quickly. Virgos like to nurture others, because they are about maintaining health and routine in daily life, and if they're able to do that, they're gonna like want to share it with you and share in with it on you. And really, they're also another chill sign. Funny enough, it's another earth sign. But we have Libra starting off fall now, that's why they're separate. And they also correspond, they're also each opposites of each other. So one Aries, one Libra, opposites of each other, 2 Taurus, 2 Scorpio, opposites of each other, and so on. So Scorpio, as I was talking about water, is all about exploring depths, because this is like the surface level and you can't even see the bottom. Think about how grueling that must be as a task. Sagittarius is all about exploring the truth, because they have the arrows of truth. Capricorn is the master of the earth, because on the zodiac wheel they are considered the mid-heaven house, and that is considered the all spiritual. But by that, Capricorn being an earth sign, they're spiritual in the sense that they understand how to master the physical world, because they're at the top. And it's also a goat, and the goat represents the devil in tarot. Hey! Here we are with Aquarius, and they're all about evolving humanity, whether that's through technology, revolutionizing, or coming up with ideas that challenge society. And then Pisces is all about how to act selfless, because you understand the struggles of the world, and you're able to go within yourself and find fulfillment in yourself and really have mercy on others because you understand. So we're moving on to the planets and asteroids. Specifically, the asteroids in this picture is Pallas, Juno, Vesta, Chiron, and you never see Earth. Earth is just not in the wheel, because we live on Earth. So how are we going to figure out where Earth is if we're on it? But just so you know, this is what the symbol of Earth looks like. Whew, I know this is a bit cramped. I probably should have put this onto separate pages, but I just wanted it all on one concise page, so if you want to look back at it. So I actually put these in order that they are from the sun, starting from the sun. And as I was talking about, there were some asteroids in there. So I have the asteroids placed where they are in the zodiac, in the solar system too, so that way you're able to get a perspective on how these evolve throughout the solar system. So the sun, as we said, the spotlight, so whatever it touches, it's all about self-expression because the sun is our ego. Mercury is about how we communicate daily because Mercury is the closest thing to the sun. So therefore, if the sun is about self-expression and Mercury is the closest thing, it's going to be the thing that's going to, it's almost like the tiny bodyguard next to the sun. Mercury is just like, hey, nothing gets to the sun without going through me first, and nothing comes out from here where the sun is unless it goes through me. It's like the gatekeeper, and that's which is, if we didn't communicate with each other, how would anything get done? So that shows you how important Mercury is in our daily communication, and why when it goes retrograde 3 to 4 times a year, things can get a little kooky and messed up because communication is just not on the same page as it usually is. Venus is a very warm planet. We can't see through it because the clouds are just so so thick. I'm actually talking about the physical planet Venus here to describe some of the features on why we describe these characteristics as we do. And because of that, really the reason why the atmosphere is so thick on Venus is because Venus is a very volcanic planet, and because it's volcanic and always spewing out, think how destructive that is. Venus is about love, but this love can be destructive. So the things that you desire the most are the things you can also destroy or just don't know what to do with when you get it, because you're just like, this isn't what I was expecting, because you can't see what's in Venus until you get into Venus, which is funny. So as we said, the earth is not a symbol. It is a symbol, but you don't see it because we're on it. So what represents earth is the moon in this part. So right after Venus would be earth, but it's now the moon. So the moon represents your inner emotions because we are humans and we are filled with 95% water. So therefore the moon controls the water. So if the moon controls the water and is changing every 2.5 days, then our emotions and how we feel every day is changing from a day-to-day basis. So that's a little bit of showing you how we're affected on Earth, funnily enough. Mars comes right after us, and Mars, they say, is a warring planet, and it's red, so of course it represents aggression, but it's also geologically a dead planet. There's nothing going on Mars. So because of that, Mars just appears aggressive from a distance. So it's like, Mars will defend if it has to, but if it doesn't have to, it's pretty tame. So Sirius comes next. It's in the asteroid belt, which is in between Mars and Jupiter. This is like a gap. So Sirius is all about nurturing. And Sirius is the symbol wasn't here, but I'll put a symbol in the picture. It's that little sickle thing that you use to chop up wheat for harvesting, and that harvesting is used to plenty and give out and feed and nurture. So that's what Sirius is all about, how you nurture yourself, and through how you nurture yourself, how you nurture others. Moving on to Jupiter. Jupiter, they say, is your lucky card. In tarot, it is the Wheel of Fortune, and it's like whatever you get, it's like what you get. Are you going to draw lucky or are you going to draw bad? And this is all about your spiritual energy, because it's everything that's inside of you. It just feels lucky because you're tapping into something that you just didn't know you could tap into, and you're just like, oh my God. That's how it feels like. You're just like, wow, that's so lucky. And you're just like, no, actually, no, it was inside of you. You just manifested energy inside of you. You just didn't know that was there. And it also shows up when you need it, because Jupiter can be overabundant, but by also being overabundant, it knows how to chill too and restrict, because too much of something is a bad thing. Which brings Saturn, because Saturn is what they thought was the end of the zodiac, the end of the planets. So therefore it represents the boundaries and the end of life. However, there's a funny wound right there when you move on to Chiron, because Uranus is about skipping over Chiron for a second, Uranus is about challenging those boundaries. Because after, as we said, we thought Saturn was the end, that was death. Here comes Uranus, ta-da! There's something else after death, guys. We're just like, what? Really? Wow, we're struggling here. You're challenging our beliefs. And in that process, from moving from Saturn to Uranus, we have Chiron, who's the wounded healer, and you're like searching for this answer for like all your life because it's something that has wounded you. It could be like something like you've gotten from a past life or in this life. But the sad story of the wounded healer is that it's a wound you can never heal, but you've searched so much that you've been granted knowledge to share with others, because even though you couldn't help heal yourself, you can help others to approach healing in a sense, because you could be, maybe you could see somebody going through a similar situation. Think about it as a therapist. You see somebody in a similar situation and you're just like, I've seen these signs before. I think this is what you're going through, and I think I know what I can do to help you with this. Maybe I personally haven't gotten there, but I've done things that has helped me get here. So maybe these things will help you get there. So moving on to Neptune, which comes after Uranus. And now Neptune is the last of the planets because Pluto is no longer a planet, but in astrology, Pluto is still a planet. So Neptune represents imagination. What else could there be next? Because now we thought Uranus was it, but oh no, wait, there's another one, Neptune. So now, what else is there out there? You know, you just get creative. You're just like, man, we're finding so much out there in the spiritual realm and out there in the universe that we're just awestruck and we just want to learn more about it. But you can also get lost in that because we're still searching. But what are we searching for? And then Pluto, the very end, because Pluto's still a planet. So it's the forgotten, but it's not, because when you think about Pluto, think about all the things that Pluto can symbolize that you're just leaving out, which is transformative, and that's why it represents a permanent change, because now Pluto, for real, represents the end of our solar system. I mean, yes, we got planets, comets, asteroids farther out there. I'm going to be doing a presentation on Planet X later on, which is now the new 9th planet replacing Pluto. But is it really out there? It's just all theoretical mathematics. So now we're going to move on to deacons. And deacons, how I'm going to break down deacons to you is through a home analogy, because the best way to think about it is ranks. So the first deacon is from 0 to 9, and to quickly talk about, this is both a zodiac sign and a house is 30 degrees no matter what. So therefore, 30 degrees means 0 to 29, because 30 is just another 0. So that's why we start from 0. And in numerology, there's no double digits, so there's really only 0 to 9. So so therefore, when you get to 10 to 19 and 20 to 29, you're just repeating cycles over and over again. And if you think about it in that sense, the first decan is like the source energy, because it's like the pure energy. And then when you move into the second decan, you're doing it over again, so you're like lessening the energy. And then now we're moving on into the third decan and we're doing it a third time. So now it's double less what it was now. And so that's another way. But first decan is the parent. It's the rules are rules. These are the rules that I lay out. Now everybody else that trails after me, this is what you gotta follow. Second decan, pop, comes out a child. The child's like, oh, okay, these are the rules we follow. Gets a little bit through life. They're just like, I'm not sure if I really want to go by these rules or if I want to go by the rules I'm learning here. So let me try to blend these together. And then now we have a visitor. The child has a friend come over, and this friend is a visitor. And this visitor is outside views. It's like a free-for-all, walking into a house, having to accommodate. But it's just like, do I really have to accommodate because I'm a guest? I could choose to be accommodative if I want to, but I'm not in my house. I could choose to respect you, or I could choose not to respect you. That's what like the third deacon is like, because it's just so far from the energy that it's just kind of, are you really? Because you're like the last of the last, and who likes to be the last pick of anything? So we're going to talk about the houses, because the deacons make up the houses. And the first house, the house represents the 12 parts of life that make us human. So the first house represents the physical body, because it's actually, that's a really good question. If you're on earth, what do you need first? Yeah, your spirit, but how do you physically work in the physical world without a physical body? So the first house has to be your physical body. And then after that, now you're in the physical world, and now you have to figure out what do you like in the physical world and how you want to protect and defend yourself and enjoy the physical world. So now you're finding safety in material things, because you're now a material being. You have spiritual needs that makes you feel comfortable, which we'll talk about later, but now this is just all physical, because we're getting adjusted to being in the physical world. So now that we're getting adjusted to the physical world, oh, we came across another human being. How do I interact with you? Do we speak the same language? Can we get along? Do we think the same way? So now we're moving on to the fourth house. If we don't think the same way, now we're butting heads. Do I want to get along with you? Do I choose to walk away? Do I choose to stay? And then moving on to the fifth house. We're having fun. We're enjoying life. We're creating, and yes, that does include making babies. We are creating and having fun in life and just enjoying life and everything life has to offer, because we're in the physical world after all, so we have to enjoy what the world gives us. Then the sixth house, we have to learn to maintain the balance of work and play, because it can be all work or it can be all play, but you need a balance, which comes into the seventh house, which is having everyday relationships. So how are you balancing and maintaining your everyday relationships? Are you being casual with them? Are you being too like standoffish? Like how do you interact with the people around you and form relationships? This is all types of relationships. Now we're moving on to the changes of life, because life is all about changes. Relationships end. You have to adjust to that. Sometimes relationships go to the next level. You gotta adjust to that too. And through that, we're moving on to the ninth house, which is all about a personal journey. And now this is more inward. So now we're looking in, searching for something outward, of course, obviously, but this is a journey for us, things that we want to search to fulfill us, whether it's spirit, whether it's educational, whether it's like a friend group. We just searching for something that makes us us. You know, we want to learn more about ourselves or about the world around us, because the more you know, the more it's just like the funny, I'm gonna put the clip right here when they say, isn't that funny? It's really true. The more you know, you just know. And the 10th house is all about personal achievements. What did you learn through this personal journey, and how did you choose to use the information that you've learned, and how did you choose to also reflect on your past growing up and coming up to where you are now in life? And what have you achieved throughout your entire life, basically? And are you happy with yourself? And then you got to reflect on your personal relationships, because not everybody gets to be like in your inner circle. So now you got to like start setting boundaries. Like, who am I really going to hang out with and really put my, what would you say? Put my name on, because really people do judge you on the type of friend groups you have, because they say apples don't fall far from the tree, and birds of a feather flock together. So if y'all similar in sense and law of attraction, you can only attract what you are. So the 12th house is, here we are talking about the spiritual psyche, which is talking about what fulfills you spiritually, because you have done everything you could possibly do in the physical world. So now you have to do all this in the inner world and feel out and search for yourself and how you feel and your relationship with spiritualism. So now we're going to talk about specifically angles in the birth chart, because these angles are very important, and this is also representing the compass of the birth chart. This is the ascendant, which is always the ascendant. These places are always fixed, and as you see, these are always where the houses are. So this is like fixed. None of this changes. It's only the planet, zodiac signs, and asteroids that move. The houses and the angles stay the same. So on a birth chart, this is very important because this is what is going... I mean, everything I just talked about was all important because these things have importance when talking about degrees, because degrees is like the final stamp on what makes an aspect. So degrees are a type of measurement, and this type of measurement is how the stars move in the sky. Because we got to map how that works. This is amazing about science. Like we got everything mapped down to a science, really. We know how the unseen world works and how the physical world works. And that really there's like 11 dimensions out there, but they just don't want to acknowledge the 4th dimension, and that there's spiritualism. But just as humans are 5 feet 5 inches, or like, you know, we're like certain feet, certain inches, you can think about that as planets. So the degrees represents your base, so that's like your feet. And this represents how far you are into a zodiac sign. That's it. If you want to know more, you can know the minutes, and the minutes will tell you how far into show you how far into the zodiac it is, and as a clock, how many minutes in. That's like a precise. So now that's like your inch. But also, we're talking about time here. So minutes have seconds. So this is like your centimeters now. If you want to go deep, like so you could be like 5 feet, 5 inches, and like 12 centimeters. This is like precise accuracy if you want it. And now this encompasses everything you need to know, because when you look at the birth chart, you're going to be able to break down your birth chart, because I have so far described everything you need to know except these lines. And that's what my next episode is going to be about. And these lines translates to the table down here, and this is an aspect table. And these lines are aspects, and they don't like break it down clearly on the birth chart. That's why they have a table for it. They just list colors, and you're supposed to know these colors. So I'm going to break down the colors for you. It makes sense for the elements. Here is fire, red for fire, green for earth, yellow for air, and then blue for water. Makes sense, right? That pretty much, those are the colors you see when you see those elements. But then it just doesn't make sense when you look at the aspect line. So this is like your traffic light. Red means bad, blue means go, and then green means yield. That's a way to put it. So, and then sometimes you might see empty houses. Astrology is so deep that the more the more planets you look at, the more why do I want to keep saying zodiac signs? God. The more planets you look at, the more asteroids you look at, you'll be able to see your chart will start filling up. And also as the chart fills up, you're going to be getting a whole lot more aspects, because it's like, first off, you're looking at like a big picture like this. And now you're like zooming in with adding more planets and stuff to analyze. Before it's just like all like that. And then you got like the greatest picture of all time. So that means what is left to learn? Well, I have to teach you the essential deities, which talks about deacons. And that has to include deacons, because these essential deities talks about rulerships, and planets rule zodiac signs, and zodiac signs have houses. And these essential deities are basically your parent, child, and home. Parent, child, and visitor of each zodiac sign, and depending on, and so those have rulers too. These deacons have rulers inside of a zodiac sign that has a ruler with planets in it. So like the ruler might not even be in that house. So you got to think how that ruler is interacting with the imaginary ruler that's inside of the big papa ruler, the zodiac sign. And then all that to tell you about aspects, because elements can get along, but they can also not get along. So therefore, whatever planet is in that element, it might not get along with another planet, but it could be a planet that it might have something in common with, but it just could just be not thinking straight, not getting along too well because of the aspects and the lines. So we're going to explain that, and then after that, we now know everything we could possibly know, then to then go advance and look at what today looks like superimposed on our natal chart. So therefore we can see that this is like double planets. So you have like the outer ring would be like your planets of today, and they might be different from where they are in your inner planes, which is your natal chart, and different aspects will be touching, and those aspects will tell you how you're feeling today. So thank you guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and it was great talking to you guys, and I will see you guys later for the brown round. And enjoy astrology. Try reading your birth chart a little bit, even though you don't know aspects. Just knowing about a planet and a house and a zodiac sign can tell you a little bit. It's just isolated without the zodiac signs, without the aspects, because then you're just like, well, then how does this play into my life? Well, if you look at the aspects, you'll know. But just in an isolated term, you could start thinking about yourself in pieces before putting together the whole. Bye!